Hi everyone, it's Jean from the Inky Owl Studio. This is part 2 of a 4-part series in which I am giving you a tutorial on how I put together my recipe keeper, which is going to be much like this one here. I hope you'll consider subscribing to finish out the series, and I'll link down below where part 1 is at. And today we're going to be working on making the cover for our journal. So I pre-recorded this, and so we'll just jump right in. Now we're ready to put the cover on the outside, and I use cloth because it really has a greater longevity to it rather than using paper. But you could use paper. It just won't probably last as long if you did. And I got this really neat kind of this farm type of pattern. I think it'd be really fun for a cookbook cover. And I have ironed on some interfacing. And this is, you attach it with an iron with heat. It is Pellon, P-E-L-L-O-N, is interfacing company that makes interfacing for fabrics, and it's the cheapest one. I think I paid like $1 a yard, so it doesn't have to be expensive. It's like a medium weight, and I ironed that on the back. I like to do it because, especially for simple cotton fabrics, it gives it a little bit more heft to it and more weight and that crispness, and I like the way it feels. So I always add that to my fabrics. Having that extra layer prevents this from showing so much fabric tech. Sometimes it can leave, you can see where lumps or bumps are at in the glue if it's just a thin cotton fabric. So it kind of helps hide that a little bit. Now I do not do the interfacing on upholstery fabric or thick fabric, but I'm just talking here about the cotton ones. So I prepared that, and that is ready. And here are the boards, or the cover and the spine. And remember that we measured, after we made the hinge, then we measured, how wide should that spine be. So this is a pretty good, this is 2 1/4, and you have a little bit left on each side of the last and first hinge, and then enough here to go over to go onto your cover like so. Now I probably could have gotten away with like a 2 1/8 inch spine, but I just rounded it off. And the reason being that you want to have some space between here and the cover so that you can fill these pages up with your recipes and stuff, and you've got room to grow. So that's what mine turned out to be. Yours might be less or more depending on what you are doing with your spine and such. And the rule of thumb to have a distance between the spine and the cover is double the thickness of your chipboard. And this is medium weight chipboard that I got on Amazon. And so I've glued 2 pieces together, and I know that I put them up next to each other. I know that I need to at least allow this much, at least this much, because when your book goes to fold up, it takes up room between there. If you had done it like this, you probably couldn't close it, and you would be really putting more wear and tear on the fabric than you needed to. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that I learned. I think you can eye it up and say, it's like a little less than 1/4 of an inch, maybe, something like that. But you do want to allow this space in between. Let's see, make sure I've got all my thoughts here. This is what I use. 3-in-1 would probably be good, and Fabric Fix would also be a good one. They're a little cheaper than probably the Fabric Tech, Old Made by Beacon, and the formula seems about the same. So then I want to make sure that my fabric is lined up the way, you know, kind of lined up so it's not like this or like this. And an overall pattern like this isn't too bad, although this does have a line to it, sort of a line. And so I would suggest the first one you make have a pattern that's even more like overall than this. You know, like a floral or something of that nature. You know, you just might find it less frustrating. You know, otherwise you do have to watch and make sure that your line here is going to be straight for the fabric. Then the fabric amount is, I try to get, this is more than efficient, but about 2 inches around the perimeter beyond my boards, about that. And this is probably a little more than that, but I try to be somewhat generous. Don't want to be too too cheap on that. The spine first and put that in the middle of my fabric, and that way I know I'll have enough on both sides to work with. I am using, I'm taking it right out of the spout of fabric tack because I want a good flow of it to come out, so it's a pretty wide opening. Using something like this is great for doing papers, but when you really need a lot of it, that's kind of not the easiest way to go. You kind of want it to come out quickly. And I smear it on with my fingers. Now, you don't have to do this. You can use like an old gift card or something to spread it out with, but for me this just works best. And I am going to now put this in the middle of the fabric here. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over here, make sure it's down. Catches really well there. Alrighty, so there's the first one down. And now the next one, of course, we're going to be laying it, you know, this far from that. And I kind of match up, make sure you're matching up the edges here. And I just put a little pencil in here just to show me and give me like a little visual. So I have a little hook, let's see, like a little pencil hook here and one down here to kind of let me know where to set this. Okay, and we will cover this side with, okay. So I'll do the second one off camera because this might be kind of boring. And so let's just put this onto here, and then I'm just going to line it up to the little pencil marks I made, but also being careful to keep it straight. I'm looking at my design at the same time. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over, and here is where, you know, I'll probably take a card. Ooh. Take a card here and put it down like so. Alright, just rub it in really well. All the cover glued on to the front. Now we're going to turn down the corners. And for this I use Mod Podge, mainly Mod Podge, full strength, or you could use, you know, a liquid white glue, I'm supposing would be the same. And at this point you don't have to worry about what it's going to look like because it's all going to be covered. What you just need to be concerned with is making sure that it is well glued in place. Alright, so let me go over here and do this side. Now I have cut all the way around like 1.25 inches left over, you know, approximately that, you know, because it was kind of wide, so I cut it back down. I also ironed that one spot where the interfacing was lifting, because I think it's really important to have good adherence between the interfacing and the fabric. So I did iron that before I put on the other cover. Now, what the goal is to make these corners, you know, is to cover up the rim and to cover up the corners. And make sure I'm in frame. Okay. And the first thing I want to do is I want to bring down this corner over the this corner of the fabric over the corner of the cover, and that's the first step that I want to do. Now I will probably use Fabri-Tac for this, just because I want to get good adherence to it. So let me just stick in a little dot of that. Alrighty. And I will also take a little bit of my Mod Podge, and I'm just going to saturate these little bendy places here. The little crease, or the place where it's going to bend over on each other. And, you know, I'm just going to add a saturation, because you do want to saturate your fabric. So that's another reason I'm using Mod Podge, because it is water-based, and you can really get into the layers of your fabric. So we're just going to, and you got time, you know, like if it's not coming out right, you can take it apart. So it is much easier, I think, working with it. So the goal is you want to wrap it around and have these two lines come as close as you can get, and don't stress too much about it, but try to get them to come close but not overlap, because you don't want too much bulk here. So you want this edge and this edge to come close but not overlap. Okay. And when I get it first set up and I think, oh, this is the way I want it to be, then I go over with a bone folder to kind of give it some creases so that I can see them, you know, in the future, how it's going to lay down. So I will do that to both sides. And I'm just going to put a little bit of this down here. Oh, come on. And wrap this up over, like so. And we're going to burnish it a little bit so I can have a seam worked up inside there, so I can see where that is, more or less. I'm going to put down a layer of Fabri-Tac right here on the edge, on the very edge, just to give it some extra strength and gluiness to it. I'm just going to put it right down there like that. I don't have to worry about wiping it out, because like I say, you're not going to see this portion. So let's get this one down. Oh, and then fill in with your Mod Podge. A generous amount here. Yeah, nice generous amount over the Fabri-Tac there and everything. There we go. Now what you will see on the inside is like 1/4 of an inch in. And because of that, I usually avoid putting Mod Podge on that area, just in case. Because Mod Podge will change your fabric. It'll make it stiff and hard. And it'll change it slightly. I wouldn't say a great deal, but it will a little bit. And so I'm just going to go over it again, just making sure I get glue worked into that. Now I will kind of spend a little time, you know, maybe a minute, going over and pressing these corners down, making sure that, and I think it needs extra glue, I'll put a little extra glue in there if I feel like it's not laying down as flat as I would like. And then work on the long sides. And I will do the bottom next, in case I make a boo-boo that I can learn not to do when I do the top. And let's just get it in there. Make sure that's all saturated. And we'll put down our bead of Fabri-Tac in it, and then we'll just go over it with extra Mod Podge. And like I say, I'm not being stingy, I am being quite generous with the Mod Podge because it has to soak through all those layers of fabric, or those 2 layers anyways, textile. And you know, it wouldn't hurt to maybe do a little of this. Okay. And now, again, and so I'm being really careful to pull it up so there's no gaps here along the edge. So I'm rubbing to the inside like that. Okay, and I will go over with some more Mod Podge, and I'm going to try to avoid the last outer 1/4 of an inch if I can. It's probably not too big of a deal because, like I say, we're going to be covering this all up, and you're not going to see the mess in here. And that's why you can use the Mod Podge, or you can use any kind of glue that holds, because you're not going to see it anyways, and you can be messy with it. So I just want to make sure that I get these seams down, because they have to go through quite a few layers of fabric or textiles here. And so, all right, all the sides are wrapped around, and I have put clips here to keep down those little folds on the corners, and then I will let this dry overnight, and while it's drying it will buckle, but don't worry about that, we're going to fix that all up. So the key is to get this nice and dry. I also wanted to bring out that there is another way, well, there's several ways to put the cover on. This is by no means the only way. I just find this one the easiest. But another thing that you can try, and maybe you want to do this on, you know, just take a piece of chipboard and experiment with cloth with this. But you can use Mod Podge for the whole thing. So just like we did down here, where we put the Mod Podge down generously, and then we, you know, put in the fabric and went over the fabric with Mod Podge again, you can do that for the whole cover. And you would do just as the same way. You would do the middle first, and then you would do the panels or the covers next. I didn't do it because it is a little trickier to get it, and also the end results may not be something you care for. So I did it with this one, and so what you get is the Mod Podge will make the fabric real stiff. So it's rough. It feels like a book, like a cloth book, right? And if it's it'll be really rough when you first get it on. So then I take sanding. Let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I have a Memory Keeper's file sander, whatever. And you could probably get sanding paper, but get it very, very, very fine. And you can just go over it lightly to get the nubs off, because it will make the little nubs on the fabric, the threads, kind of stand up. And you can smooth it out and such. So there's a little bit more work to doing it this way, but when you get done, it's a pretty hard surface and probably easier to clean. The But doing it this way, very soft, and it feels very nice to the touch. You can spray it with Scotch Guard for the cleaning part of it, to make it a little easier to clean. But it does feel nicer in the hand. So, and it is a little easier and more predictable to do this way. So I'm just putting that out there in case you want to experiment with doing it that way. You know, like I say, I would just maybe make a mini book, make a little mini book, experiment with it and see how you like it, because you may not like the end result. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there. And of course, there are even more ways to put covers on, but this is probably, for me, I felt was the simplest way to show you. And so I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll be back again and for the next part. Thanks so much for following along. That concludes this part 2, and next week we will move on to another portion of putting together the recipe keeper. So you have a great day, and we will talk to you later. Bye.